So good morning and welcome to PLC II. It's Friday, it's 8 a.m. It's week 4, I think, of online. I'm shocked that it's gone. This is day 31 or something like that of our quarantine. So in Maryville, I think we heard that they're gonna try to extend all the social distancing until mid-May at the earliest. So that still gives us about another month of all of this. I know that Northwest just went recently to all online summer classes, so I'm still hopeful that we'll get to see each other again in the fall. That's kind of where that's what I'm living for right now. Seeing your faces is nice and all, but being in your presence, that's even better. So I'll never take an 8 o'clock for granted again. I probably will eventually, but for now, that's my mantra. I'm never gonna take an 8 o'clock for granted again. Let me share our screen here, share my screen. And here's the agenda for today. We're gonna welcome each other as we're doing right now, and then we're gonna get into some small group discussions about what you saw for learning with others and sense of audience. Those two topics on the front of Antonetti's cube that are actually Schlechty's work. And if you have time in your groups, you can talk about the hot topic on the Rita Pierson video. What we found is that just don't generally have the time to do that. So I'll address that here in just a second as far as the hot topic stuff goes. Questions to ask of each other in your small groups. There they are on the agenda. First thing, just break the ice a little bit. What's one activity that you have started since social distancing that you really enjoyed? So it's been a time away from each other, but there's also been opportunities maybe to pick up new hobbies or pick up old hobbies once again. So talk about that in your small groups for a few moments. Talk about the examples that you saw of the videos that you watched of learning with others and sense of audience. Are there any personal examples that you can think of for learning with others and sense of audience that you've experienced in your educational career? And if you got time, a question from the Rita Pierson video. Rita contends that in order for students to learn, they must like their teacher. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that? And I'll give you about 10 to 12 minutes in those smaller groups, and then we'll come back as a whole. My big concern in the whole group is to make sure that everybody was on the same page with those examples of learning with others and sense of audience, that in the groups you kind of were able to discern that you understood what those things we're talking about. I'll talk about next week's hot topic. I'll wait until then to talk about next week's hot topic, and then we'll also talk about next week's look fors on the cube. So that's the general plan. In order to get to this agenda, what you'll need to do is click on online week 4. That's in our course website, and it says agenda for April 17th. That's right there. When you click on that, it pops up with that set of questions, and you can talk about those with each other in the group. So I'm going to stop sharing. There are 12 of us here today, so that'll mean I think we do 4 groups of 3 is how that's going to work out. I'm going to pause the recording. Welcome back from small group stuff. I don't know, the first question, what new things have you picked up, or what old hobbies have you picked up again for the first time? I have picked up my guitar and started playing it. I've played it like every day for the last month, and I'd not done that for many years before then. I also told you about my TikTok adventures. I have deleted TikTok. I just can't quite. It's just not for me. It's not I'm not the target audience. I've decided on TikTok. So I just couldn't quite get into that. But my children have introduced me to Minecraft. So I've been playing a lot of Minecraft over the last, that's probably too, maybe you don't play that, but my kids are 8 and 10. So they're I think prime Minecraft. So that's how we're bonding over Minecraft for the break. So those are some things that I've done. I hope that you found some hobbies that can kind of sustain you too. What else? The second question was about learning with others and sense of audience. Let me share my screen with you here real quick. That's not how to do it. You would think that after having done this for a month, I would actually remember how to do these things. Okay, so there's the agenda. The second question, like I said, what examples of learning with others and sense of audience did we see? Hang on, let me show you the cube here. The problem being that the Zoom controls are also above my browser controls, so it's hard to flip back and forth between the screens. I'm assuming you're seeing the cube here. And so remember, we're looking at the front part of the cube for this particular class. Some of you, when you turned in your observations, or what you saw in the videos, you were looking at the high yield strategies. You were identifying high yield strategies from Marzano that you saw in the videos, which is awesome. I'm glad that you can identify those strategies. But remember, for this class, we're looking specifically at the front of the cube. And those are Schlechty's 8 engaging qualities of work. So do keep that in mind as you're doing your work. And this past week, we asked you to look at learning with others and sense of audience. Next week, we're going to ask you to look at emotional and intellectual safety and choice. And before I forget, I know you've been looking at the same videos for like 2 or 3 weeks now. If you want to this week, you're welcome to go and find another teaching video. The only thing I would ask about that is if you do that, then on the document that you turn in, would you give me a link to it? Not because I don't trust you, but because I actually would want to see it too. I want to have kind of a list of links of different lessons that you've observed, so that I can actually have those in my back pocket. So that would be the reason I would want you to do that. Just if you choose to look at another video beyond the ones we've given you, just put the link in the document itself. What would I say about learning with others? I think all of the research that's been done backs up the idea that if you really want to engage students in a more effective way than just doing what I'm doing now, which is lecturing to you guys, that you break up your lecture and allow your students to process things in groups, some way, shape, or form. With a partner, a group of 3, group of 4, more than a group of 4 is probably pretty hard for you as a teacher to control. How is it that in your classroom you can think about starting to do things like that? And especially in the lesson plan that you're designing for the curriculum and instruction class, a really effective way to let your students process stuff is to let them do it in groups. How can you integrate that into the framework of your lesson plan? And the other thing, it's really powerful, it's harder to do, but it's very powerful, is give them a sense of audience. If you are a language arts teacher and you want them to write a letter, you know, that they're automatically having a sense of audience. If you take that idea as a social studies teacher and you want to write George Washington a letter about what's happening in the country during the Revolutionary War, that's a powerful sense of audience. If you want to do it for reals, that's right, I just use that phrase. I picked that up from my kids. So that's another thing I've learned during our quarantine. But if you want to do it for real, you can actually bring in people to your classroom. You know, the principal can be an audience for your presentations. In the curriculum and instruction class, if you were in my class, we watched videos about project-based learning. You can remember the project-based learning, the end of all of those activities is literally a group of people coming in to watch what students present. So in some way, shape, or form, if you can give your students an audience, it will engage them, because at some point they don't care as much about performing for you as a teacher, because you're there every day. But if you bring in a unique set of people, that actually can engage students in doing their best work. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. You guys have any thoughts about that, what you saw or what you've seen in your own experience? Good to know. Okay. Okay, so for this week, let me share screen again. This week, you're going to look at emotional and intellectual safety and choice. And this document, Schlechty's 8 Qualities of Engagement, is located in the Week 2 online module. It's a good reference. It just kind of gives you a little bit of what to look for. So again, emotional and intellectual safety and choice. Choice is number 6 on the list. I think emotional, there we go, emotional intellectual safety. Do your kids have the freedom to take risks in the classroom? If you ask them a question, are they afraid to answer? Much like you guys were afraid to answer 30 seconds ago. Hopefully it's not because you feel like I'm going to shut you down. Hopefully it's because it's 8 o'clock on a Friday on a Zoom, and that is what it is. But are your kids afraid you're going to shut them down? Do they feel actually safe in your classroom If they do, they're much more likely to risk an answer that may be incorrect, okay? It's important to create that kind of intellectual and emotional space in a classroom. If you don't have it, your kids won't really learn, not in the way that you want them to. They may learn rote memorization stuff, but they'll never take the risks to actually try and apply it because they'll be afraid to be wrong. They'll be afraid to be called out. So kind of look for that in what your video is for this week. The other thing is choice, and that's where you give students meaningful options. If students have some control over what they're doing, they're more likely to be engaged in doing it. And so early on in my career, I didn't give choice at all. You know, the assignment was the assignment, and if you didn't do the assignment, yeah, bad for you. Later on in my public school career, students would come to me sometimes and just being honest and saying, I don't like this assignment. I don't understand this assignment. And I would try to accommodate them as much as I could. And I would say, okay, that's fine. We don't necessarily have to do it this way, but here's the objective. Can you tell me another way that you want to help me understand that you know what I want to teach you? You know, that's a measure of choice. That might be a little too much choice in some cases. Some teachers have activities set up. You know, you want to do activity A, B, or C. Whatever you can do in terms of choice in a classroom, your students will likely be more engaged in that process. Have them do things in different order if you want to. Just give them what they have to accomplish, but tell them they can do it in any order. You know, that sort of thing too would work. So in the videos that you're going to look at this week, you can either choose the same 3 that we've got, or you can, again, go out and look for more videos if you want to. Again, the only thing I would ask on that is if you have a video that's outside of what we have put on the website, just give me a link to it so that I can actually keep it for my own purposes. Okay. Other questions? Anything? Meaning of life, deep-seated philosophical stuff. All right. I'm going to end the recording